The visionary journalist to Paris and Brussels. After completing his annotation for Morgas Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, Rizal moved to Paris on May 6, 1889. He took an active part in the campaign for reform in Barcelona and Madrid, synthesizing historical materials about the Philippines. After annotating Morgas Sucesos, Rizal realized that there are numerous materials about the Philippines and Filipinos. If we are to understand fully our past, Rizal felt that these materials have to be collected and synthesized. And in order to do so, Rizal conceived of the organization of an international association of Philippinologists with Rost, Blumentritt, and Rizal himself. Rizal communicated his plan to Blumentritt and suggested that Blumentritt be its president and himself as secretary. Blumentritt accepted Rizal's offer, but suggested that independent tribes and regions of the Philippines be included in the agenda. Nonetheless, the plan did not materialize since the French government limited the number of conferences to be held in Paris. Rizal and the Exposition of 1889. To bring together the youthful Filipinos in Paris during the entire duration of the exposition, Rizal founded the Kidlat Club on March 19, 1889. The Filipino expatriates who joined the organization were Antonio Luna, Juan Luna, Fernando Canon, Julio Llorente, Baldaremo Rojas, and many others. Another society that Rizal founded in Paris was the Indios Bravos, which replaced the Kidlat Club. The members of this organization vowed to excel in intellectual and physical prowess in order to gain the admiration of foreigners, especially Spaniards. Thus, they practiced enthusiastically the use of the sword and pistol. Rizal on his part instructed them on judo, the Japanese art of self-defense.
In addition to the aforementioned Society of Filipino Patriots, Rizal founded the Redacción de los Malayos. Its aim as a secret society was the propagation of all useful knowledge in the Philippines. Nonetheless, another aim of the organization, based on its acronym, was the redemption of the Malay race. Other activities and accomplishments in Paris. It was in Paris where Rizal published his annotation of Morgas Sucesos. He dedicated it to the Filipinos. Thus he said,
"If the book succeeds in awakening in you the consciousness of our past blotted from memory, then I shall not have labored in vain, and with this basis, slight though it be, we can devote ourselves to the study of the future."
It was also in this city where he wrote the satirical essay entitled Por Telefono, under the pen name de Mas Alang, in answer to the attacks made by Father Font against his novel Noli Me Tangere. Meanwhile, Rizal continued contributing articles to the La Solidaridad. Two of his essays worth mentioning at this juncture are the Sobre la Indolencia de los Filipinos, Pinas dentro de 100 años. It was the longest essay written by Rizal, which was published in 5 installments in the La Solidaridad from July 15 to September 15, 1890. As the most analytical study made by Rizal about our society during the Spanish regime, this essay represents his defense of the Filipinos from the charge that they were inherently lazy or indolent. Rizal's thesis in this essay was simple. Filipinos were not born lazy but had a predisposition to become lazy, acknowledging this tendency for the Filipinos to become indolent due in part to the tropical climate. Rizal noted that it was the Europeans surrounded by servants who was the paragon of laziness on the tropics. People in the tropics are expected to work less. Hot climate, however, was compensated
By the fertility of the soil. As a consequence, the peasants did not have to work hard to ensure good crops. Pre-Spanish Filipinos were noted for their activity and honesty, what, therefore, led the collapse of this natural willingness of the Filipinos to work. The deterioration of the industry of the Filipinos can be attributed to two sets of factors, those attributable to the Spanish colonizers and those to the Filipinos' own faults. Sobre la Indolencia de los Filipinos. Wars and internal disorders that followed Spanish conquest. Piratal attacks on the coastal towns and villages by Muslim pirates. Forced labor and shipbuilding. Government's neglect and apathy to agriculture, industry, and commerce. Absence of material and moral incentives to work harder. The teaching of the Spanish missionaries that heaven is for the poor. Too much government restriction and red tape in the approval of permit to transact business. encouragement and propagation of gambling, ownership of the big estates by the friars, examples set by the Spaniards in disdaining manual labor, and deprivation of human dignity. However, there were also factors attributable to the Filipinos themselves. Notable among these are the following: feeling of inferiority, placing hopes on miracles, lack of spirit to pursue lofty purposes, lack of national sentiment.
Filipinas dentro de 100 años. Rizal felt that it was high time to remind Spain that the forces and circumstances that ushered in the French and Spanish revolutions could have a telling effect for her in the Philippines. He therefore wrote Filipinas dentro de 100 años, or the Philippine a century hence, to forecast the future of the country within 100 years. The aforementioned essay came out as a series of 4 articles in the La Solidaridad from September 30, 1889 to February 1, 1890. For Rizal, it is necessary to open the book that tells of our past, before its destiny can be predicted. This essay starts with an analysis of the causes of the miseries of the people. One of the causes identified in this article was Spain's implementation of her military policies. As a consequence of these policies, the country was depopulated. Poverty became widespread. Thus, all phases of the life of the Filipinos were retarded. Second cause of this misery was the deterioration and disappearance of Filipino indigenous culture, the destruction of native ways of the people. This, in effect, resulted into the people's loss of confidence on the past, loss of faith in the present, and loss of hope in the future. Third cause of this miserable condition of the people was their passivity and submissiveness to the Spanish colonizers. They had resigned themselves to their fate, since the friars had been very effective in developing a culture of silence among the people. As a result of racial discrimination, the Filipinos became aware that they were a distinct people. In effect, they accumulated grievances against the colonial masters, which culminated in the outbreak of uncoordinated and unsuccessful revolts. One question raised by Rizal in this essay was, should Spain decide to prevent the progress of the Philippines, what could she possibly do? Keeping the people ignorant had failed. This can be attested by the awakening of the national consciousness among the people, which had united them. Course to impoverishment also was futile. Keeping the people in poverty created in the Filipinos the desire to change things. To wipe out the Filipino race would necessitate sacrificing a huge number of Spain's manpower, and definitely Spain will not allow this to happen. The third article of Rizal's essay centered on the reforms and political changes needed for the Philippines to remain under the Spanish rule. He stressed that reforms have to be initiated by the government for them to be peaceful and effective. This was because any change originated by the masses would definitely be fatal and violent. The reforms that the Spanish government should initiate in the country according to Rizal: freedom of the press, representation of the Filipinos in the Spanish Cortes, granting of Spanish citizenship to the people, filing of government positions through competitive examinations, reforms in commerce, agriculture, and education, greater security for the individual. The last article of his essay delved on the stages that would lead the Philippines to independence, but inasmuch as the Filipinos are not ready for independence, Rizal predicted that Spain would be deposed or replaced by another power. To Rizal, European powers will definitely not be interested in taking over the Philippines. European powers were too preoccupied with their competition in dividing Africa among themselves. China, according to Rizal, was immersed in expelling Europeans occupying various parts of the country. Japan, another potential conqueror, was being harassed by Russia and England. If Spain will not be replaced either by European and Asian power, which country then will be interested in what Spain has to give up? To Rizal, this country is none other than the United States of America, which he labeled as Great American Republic. What Rizal envisioned in this essay came true. On May 1, 1898, the Americans entered the Philippines and wrestled from Spain the control of the Philippines. 50 years after Rizal's death, the independence of the country was recognized on July 4, 1946. This was in fulfillment of what predicted in his essay.
Rizal in Brussels. Rizal left Paris for Brussels, Belgium in January 1890. Because the cost of living has become so exorbitant and he could not resist the gay social life in Paris, which interfered with the writing of his second novel, El Filibusterismo. As a surgeon, he spent time attending and treating patients, continued his gymnastics, and target practice. Articles written for the La Solidaridad. To the defense. This was his reply to an anti-Filipino writing of Patricio de la Escorera, published on April 30, 1889. The Truth for All, written on May 31, 1889, in defense against the Spanish accusations that the native local officials were ignorant and immoral. This article was published on June 15, 1889, which exposed Barante's ignorance on the theatrical art of the Tagalog. A Profanation, published on July 31, 1889, as a bitter attack against the friars. New Truths, written by Rizal on July 31, 1889, to answer the letter of Vicente Belloc Sanchez to the destruction of the peaceful rule of the friars in the Philippines. Cruelty, penned by Rizal on August 15, 1889, to defend Blumentritt from the defamatory and insulting attacks from the latter's enemy. Differences, written on September 14, 1889, as a reply to the attacks of Old Truths, which ridiculed the Filipinos who were clamoring for reforms from the Spanish government. Inconsequences, Rizal's defense of Atolio Luna against Pablo Mir Diaz, published in El Pueblo Soberano. This article was published in La Solidaridad on November 30, 1889. Tears and Laughters, Rizal's denunciation of the racial prejudice of the Spaniards against Filipinos, published on November 30, 1889. Ingratitude, Rizal's response to what Governor General Weyler told the people on Calamba that they should not be fooled with empty promises on their ungrateful sons, came out on La Solidaridad on January 15, 1890.
Criticism of Filipinos' passion for gambling. While in Brussels, Rizal was informed by Juan Luna and Valentin Ventura that many of his fellow expatriates in Madrid had become too much preoccupied with gambling. Consequently, they wanted Rizal to do something about this. Rizal responded by sending Marcelo del Pilar a letter dated May 28, 1890, reminding fellow Filipinos their mission in Europe was to work for the freedom of the Philippines. Thus, he said,
I am afraid that we are serving the friar's scheme. There is nothing to remind them that the Filipino does not come to Europe to gamble and amuse himself, but to work for liberty and for the dignity of his race. I appeal to the patriotism of all the Filipinos to give the Spanish people proof that we are superior to our misfortune and that neither are we capable of being brutalized, nor can our noble sentiments be deafened with the corrupt of customs.
Disturbing news from home. He came to learn that the agrarian problem had worsened. Annual payment for land rental was increased, resulting in inability of his parents to pay the unreasonable rents. This resulted in the forcible eviction of the tenants from the land they were tilling. To aggravate the bad news from Calamba, Pasiano, together with Antonio Lopez and Sylvester Obaldo, were rusticated to Mindoro. Then came the deportation of Manuel Hidalgo to Bohol for the second time. This illegal deportation of his brother and brothers-in-law made him very depressed. The plan to return for the Philippines. Depressed and anxious of the misfortunes suffered by his family in Calamba, Rizal planned to return to the Philippines. Rizal's compatriots and friends in Europe were stunned and horrified with his decisions, knowing that he was already a marked man for the friars. They, therefore, cautioned Rizal not to push through with his plan. Only the letter he received from his brother Pasiano led Rizal to change his mind. Instead of going home, Rizal decided to move to Madrid to supervise the handling of the case. A Mimusa, to my muse. This poem expresses Rizal's bitterness over land troubles in Calamba. Softened by his disappointment, he bids the muse to depart from him. But as the muse leaves, he asks her to go back and bring his faith, vigor, and victory. Rizal's affair with Suzanne Jacobi. Being lonely in Belgium, Rizal had an affair with Suzanne, one of the pretty nieces of his landladies. Suzanne fell in love with him. Nevertheless, she shed her tears of sadness and grief upon knowing that Rizal had left for Madrid. Where are you now? Do you think of me once in a while? 1,000 things serve to distract your mind, my friend. But in my case, I am sad, lonely, always alone with my thoughts. Nothing, absolutely nothing, relieves my sorrow. The resolute propagandist abdicates leadership. This chapter is focused on the misfortunes Rizal experienced while in Madrid from 1890 to 1891, which culminated in his abdication of leadership in the reform movement in Europe. Rizal seeks justice for his family. Upon arriving in Madrid early in August 1890, Rizal sought justice for his family and the farmers of Calamba. He sought the assistance of the Asociación Hispano-Filipina and used the liberal newspapers in Madrid to ventilate the grievances of his family and the oppressed tenants of his hometown. With the assistance from Marcelo H. del Pilar and Dominador Gomez, he sought an audience with Senor Fabi, the Minister of Colonies, to air the injustices committed by Governor General Veriano Weyler and the Dominican friars against the powerless and poor farmers in Calamba. Tritt came to learn of Rizal's dilemma. He therefore prodded Rizal to bring the case to the Queen of Regent of Spain. Rizal considered Blumentritt's suggestion, but was faced with the problem of how an audience can be sought, considering that he had no financial logistics for the purpose, nor influential friends in Madrid who had access to the Queen. On the whole, all the attempts and efforts exerted by Rizal and his friends ended up in failure. Rizal's family was, thus, denied of justice which he sought in Madrid. The death of Jose Maria Panganiban. When he learned of the death of Jose Maria Panganiban, also known as Humapa, he felt sad hearing that the former passed away. Rizal recognized the efforts exerted by Humapa, which led him to write a eulogy for Panganiban. In that eulogy, Rizal praised him for the extraordinary talent, intelligence, and industry, and considered the latter's demise as a loss for the country. Aborted duel with Antonio Luna. Rizal attended a social gathering of Filipino expatriates in Madrid in the latter part of August 1890. After numerous shots, Luna became intoxicated and started blaming Rizal for his failure to win Nelly Busted's heart. Rizal, in many occasions, had explained to Luna that he had nothing to do with Luna's failure to win Nelly's affection. Luna, however, started uttering nasty comments about Nelly, which irritated Rizal because of his high regard for women. Rizal, therefore, challenged Luna to a duel, which stunned the other guests. They tried to pacify Luna and Rizal, for the consequence of what Luna and Rizal will do can have a serious repercussion to their struggle in Spain. When Luna regained his normal sense, he came to realize that what he did was wrong and asked Rizal for an apology, which he accepted and forgot the incident. A duel with Retana. As a press agent of the friars in the Philippines, Wenceslao Retana published numerous articles in anti-Filipino newspaper in Madrid, La Época. One of the articles he published at the time alleged that Rizal's family were ejected from the lands they were tilling for their failure to pay their annual rent to the Dominican friars. Rizal was insulted by what Retana published, which in fact was true. He therefore challenged Retana to a duel to vindicate the good name and reputation of Rizal's family. Knowing that Rizal was an expert in both sword and the pistol, Retana did not accept the challenge. Instead, he retracted what he published in the La Época, which to Rizal was Retana's way of apologizing for his unfounded allegation about Rizal's family. The marriage of Leonor Rivera. Rizal had not yet recuperated from the misfortunes he had suffered in Madrid when he received a letter from Leonor Rivera in the early part of December 1890. This letter shocked and saddened Rizal so much as Leonor informed him that she will be married to an Englishman chosen for her by her mother. Rizal's break with Marcelo del Pilar. Rizal was on the belief that to gain the respect of the Spaniards and their government, they should be willing to sacrifice for their country. Instead of heeding Rizal's call, they indulged so much in drinking and gambling, and what was worst was that many of them became preoccupied with women. According to Guerrero, Del Pilar was the only rival of Rizal for leadership in the reform movement. The rift between Rizal and Del Pilar was accentuated by the editorial policy of La Solidaridad under the latter's management that the La Solidaridad has to be run as a business, contrary to Rizal's idea that it should be run as a patriotic venture. To prevent the breakup between the two, a meeting was held on January 1, 1891 to settle the differences between Rizal and Del Pilar and bolster the campaign for reforms. The ground rules were set for the election of a responsible. To be elected, one must have 2/3 votes of the members of these in attendance had to be secured. This divided the Filipinos in Madrid in two camps, Rizalistas and Pilaristas.
Rizal wanted leadership to be recognized and accepted on the basis of his merits and readiness to serve. The rift between Rizal and Del Pilar soon intensified. Rizal informed Del Pilar that he would no longer contribute articles to the Soli. News of this rivalry soon reached Manila. Filipinos supporting the cause of the propagandists in Spain commissioned Juan Zulueta. Rizal nevertheless reiterated his stand of retiring from politics.
I leave to the Filipinos of Madrid the conduct of our politics. They understand and know it so well. I understand the desire of every Filipino to do what he pleases, and I renounce my idea of forming with my countrymen the close-ranked phalanx I dreamed of. Make use of your power to put into practice your ideas so that there may remain nothing untried.
Rizal soon left Madrid for good to forget that to him was a betrayal of his presumptive right to leadership. He then proceeded to Biarritz, a resort city in French Riviera. An affair with Nelly Busted. Having lost Leonor Rivera, Rizal became attracted to Nelly. He even communicated to his friends his intention of marrying Nelly. Fortunately, however, the affair that blossomed between the two was not consummated for two reasons. 1. Rizal did not give up his Catholic faith in exchange for the love of Nelly, who was a devout Protestant, and 2. Rizal was not acceptable to Nelly's mother. Mrs. Busted did not want her daughter to lead a miserable life with Rizal. Thus, the love affair between Rizal and Nelly failed. The two, however, parted ways as friends. To Paris and Brussels once again. It was while Rizal was in the city that he informed the propaganda authorities of his decision to retire from the reform movement. He told them to stop sending him monthly allowance. Consequently, he stopped contributing articles for the Soli. Free from the activities of the propaganda, Rizal concentrated his time and effort in revising the manuscript of the El Filibusterismo, 1830-1891.